Any great treasure hunt always starts by venturing into the unknown. In the case of mushroom hunting on the Sunshine Coast, all you have to do is take a hike. And if you venture off the path even slightly, you might spot some gold out of the corner of your eye. The golden chanterelle is a prize hard to come by in the world, but on the Sunshine Coast, nature's treasure chest is bountiful. Chanterelles aren't the only choice mushrooms in our forests. We have over 600 species of fungi here, including the ever sought-after pine mushroom that can some years be worth up to $55 per pound. But lucky for you, you live on the Sunshine Coast, where the world's delicacies lie just under your feet. All you have to do is know what to look for, and before long, you'll be looking forward to the cooler weather and the onset of rain, because you'll know that with it comes a lot of fun. And you'll be going wild every autumn, filling your baskets and dinner table with wonderful wild mushrooms. We headed up to Pender Harbor for this year's Mushroom Festival.
We're really lucky here because we have a fair number of species here in the Sunshine Coast that are edible. We've got everything from the king bolete right to the cauliflower mushroom. We've got the wonderful lobsters. We have some of the chanterelles. The chanterelles include the golden chanterelle. We've got the funnel chanterelle as well as the pig's ear. All wonderful eating mushrooms. We have several boletes, amazing boletes here in the Sunshine Coast. The pine mushroom, a highlight for many people, one of my favorites. We also have caprinus, the shaggy mane. It's wonderful eating and can be abundant like you wouldn't believe. We have the lobster mushroom, which is actually a parasitic mushroom which attacks a non-eating mushroom and makes it excellent eating. We have the unbelievable cauliflower mushrooms, as well as we have the parasols, all excellent eating. So we've got some wonderful mushrooms here and some wonderful eating opportunities. I'm really interested in mushrooms for many things. First of all, I'm a photographer, so I love to take pictures of mushrooms. They're colorful, they've got some amazing textures, they've got some fantastic colors. So to me, that's the first thing that I love about mushrooms. Second thing is, I'm also a biologist, so I love the idea of identifying mushrooms. So it's a neat and wonderful way to get into the environment at this time of the year. And thirdly, well, I like to eat mushrooms. No more said.
Well, some mushrooms make for better eating than others, like the tasty hedgehogs, or gypsies, or lobsters. But some of the mushrooms found on the coast offer more than just succulent flavor. Did you know they're medicinal?
One of the more famous is the turkey tail. So Trametes versicolor. And one of the distinct things we'll show you, I'll turn it over. If you notice on the back, it's white and there's very small pores. So it's a polypore. The white color on the back, the banded color on the front, really, you can't miss it. It usually grows on hardwoods, oak. I often find it on maple. And this is one of the great anti-cancer mushrooms. Both a number of cancers such as liver cancer, colon cancer, and done clinical trials, mostly in Japan. But also is very good for hormone-sensitive cancers like breast cancer. So this is one of the great medicinal mushrooms, easy to pick. Where found, plentiful. When you pick the fruit off the tree, this is the fruit, you're not harming the organism. They'll be back next year. This is the artist conch. You'll often see in here, people have drawn on the back of them. The artist conch is a Ganoderma applanatum and has many of the medicinal qualities associated with reishi. And both of them contain a number of polysaccharides and other compounds that are very useful for modulating the immune system. They actually help the immune system to either increase in production of T cells, B cells, white blood cells, or help to damp down when there's an autoimmune response. You know, rheumatoid arthritis, scleroderma, all of those autoimmune responses will respond well to teas and extracts of these mushrooms. Well, the main thing that makes them healthy are the content of polysaccharides. These are very complex sugar chains that are too large for us to digest. But as they're going through our system, they trigger and stimulate the lymphoid or lymphatic tissue that's in our gut, and then in turn that ramps up our immune system. So it makes the immune system go, something's up, let's pay attention, and so that's the main reason why you need to boil or decoct all of the polypores in order to take their medicinal value and get benefit from them. So you have to boil them.
There you go, and you can have it. I'm sure you need something to freshen up.
Actually, this reishi tea is a great and healthy way to keep warm and boost my immune system as I browse this literature on mushrooms, including this book whose author we just met.
The Fungal Pharmacy, the complete guide to medicinal mushrooms and lichens of North America, is exactly that. It is up to last year, the most complete, up-to-date synopsis of all of the medicinal mushrooms and how they work, how to make the medicines with them, and how to use them. And so, it's a valuable library resource for any serious mycologist.
In fact, getting a book in hand is a great way to figure out what to look for in the forest, because we have lots of choice mushrooms on the Sunshine Coast.
The chanterelle, the pine, the razula, the hedgehog, angel wings, cauliflower, morels, yellowfoot, boletes, and oysters. And there is more, but these are very common, very hard to mistake them for other things, and it's where they grow, of course. For instance, angel wings only grow on logs. So you know right away, that an angel wing isn't going to grow out of the ground. Angel wings are going to grow, on stumps. They love to grow, angel wings like to grow on the ends where the log has been cut off. The loggers that come along, then they grow out of there quite a bit. I don't see any around here, but they're one of my favorites to eat because you don't have to do anything with them. You just pick them off and throw them in a pan. There's no slicing, they're nothing. They're just like angel wings. And on the West Coast, we really only have about 3 mushrooms that are really poisonous, this being one. And it's quite identifiable by that big bulb on the end, versus the pine mushroom that doesn't have that at all. Now, I'm not saying all poisonous mushrooms have that, but no edible ones do. So it's a good way to source it out. And of course, the pine has the beautiful smell to it. If you're not familiar with that, that is your key identifier to the pine mushroom, is that smell.
So, is this a deadly Smith's Amanita or a grade A pine? Once you know the scent, it's hard to mistake one for the other. So why are so many people fungophobic?
Fungophobia, you mean people not wanting to get out there and pick them? Well, I think basically it's a case of ignorance more than anything. People have listened to too many stories about the toadstool, which truly doesn't even exist. There is no toadstool mushroom, it's just a generic term for a large mushroom. The key to it is education, like anything, is learning. Books, going out with people, take a course. That's the best thing. You're gonna get with other people who know what they're doing, some people who are novice like yourself, so you don't feel intimidated. Have a good book, a book with pictures to start with. We just discussed this, how the art drawings are kind of nice once you know stuff. So once you know them, it's kind of nice to have that art book. But to start with, undoubtedly a book that just has pictures in it.
And that's exactly what we did. Our friends at Henry Reed Organic Farm had a copy of the new Savory Wild Mushroom book, and we got a chance to look up and read about the mushrooms we found. I'm pretty sure we picked chanterelles, but you can never be too sure until you're 100% sure. And there are many ways to tell. The shape, the color, the gills, and the stem are all indicators to identifying mushrooms. In this case, when you read more about chanterelles, there's only one look-alike, the false chanterelle, but it grows on logs. The ones we found grew in the mossy ground, which is exactly where you're supposed to find them. I think it's safe to say this is definitely a chanterelle.
I would say that the only way to really overcome any of your phobias is to face them and to join a mycological society, learn about a few, start to enjoy them, edibility, and then expand from there. If you learn 3 or 4 new mushrooms every year, you know, in 10 years, you have a pretty good repertoire of what's out there that's edible, that you can enjoy. It's free food, free medicine.
Lucky for us, there's a mycological society on the coast that's loads of fun. Jai. You knew it was coming.
We are called the Sunshine Coast Society for the hunting, recognition, and observation of mushrooms, but we prefer to call ourselves Shroom. We're the Shroomers. I was, like most North Americans, I was afraid of mushrooms. My parents had taught me, don't touch a mushroom, it might kill you. So when we knew we were moving to this area, I thought I better learn about mushrooms. I'm going to be living next to them. We live in a rainforest paradise where mushrooms are just in such abundance, and it seemed that we needed a festival on the coast to celebrate these mushrooms. There are a lot of edible mushrooms. Most people like to look for chanterelles, pines, oysters in the spring, hedgehogs, lobsters, any number of edibles. I look for the dye mushrooms. I'm a fiber artist and I look for mushrooms that will give me color, so I'm looking for different kinds. Lobster mushrooms are very good, and this little purple hedgehog will be stupendous. I also use Dyer's polypore, which grow in huge abundance on the coast, and a number of others that are obscure to most people because they're not edible.
This hedgehog, for example, will make a brilliant blue to be used on garments like Anne's sweater.
Every color comes from a different mushroom or from a different way of processing the mushrooms. The front represents a Sunshine Coast sunset on a clear day. The back is a forest scene. This probably represents 2 years of dyeing, and then a good long time to knit too.
Even the buttons on Anne's sweater are dehydrated mushroom buttons.
Well, there's just always so much to learn. You're never finished learning, and I would encourage people to look into joining our club. We have a website, scshroom.org, where you can find out about joining, and as long as the mushroom season lasts, we're going out on forays in small groups, large groups, individuals, looking for what we can find, and then we love sharing them with each other and learning more about them.
After the break, you'll find out some mind-blowing facts about fungi. Don't go anywhere. Coast Magazine will be right back. Before the break, we promised we'd ooh you. Well, here goes. Mind-blowing fact number 1. Mushrooms make art. These beautiful prints weren't painted by man. They're the masterful work of mushrooms. These are spore prints and can be made by taking any mushroom and leaving it on a piece of paper overnight. Fungi fact number 2.
Well, the honey mushroom is the largest organism in the world. And in Oregon, there's one that occupies 2,200 acres. It's the largest organism in the world. How about that?
The reason he's saying organism is because mushrooms are more related to animals than they are to plants. In fact, they're their own category. But seriously, this next guy is going to tell you something amazing about mushrooms.
I'm doing research with another associate based on mushrooms that build the soil, break down wood, carbon into fertile soil and biocharge the soil community. So that's an exciting project, and it's got a great future in sustainable agriculture. Mushrooms play such a fundamental role in their interaction with plants that it's believed that, for instance, the migration from plants in the sea to the land would have taken millions and millions of years longer if it wasn't for the interaction of the fungi with the plants getting onto the land. So it goes back that far and that deeply. The future of mushrooms in sustainable agriculture is a bright one, and we've just touched the tip of the iceberg of what mushrooms can do in sustainable agriculture. And also in other fields too, even in industry, because mushrooms have got tremendous hydraulic power and can break apart granite and rock when other things can't. So there's great future for mushrooms being used in alternative ways. We just have to think outside the box here in order to utilize their potential.
Despite what you learned in early science in school, trees do not take water up and they don't take up nutrients. They exchange with fungi sugar that the mycelium needs to live on. It can't make its own food. It's not a chlorophyll plant, so it needs sugar. So the tree gives it sugar, and in exchange the mycelium form around the root hairs and they give them water and nutrients, and that's how it works. That's why there would be barely any trees on the planet without mycorrhizal mushrooms.
Mycopermaculture, remember that word, because you're going to hear a lot more about it in the future. And this is the tip of the iceberg with mushrooms. If they were investing money into things like mycological research instead of bombs and genetically engineered organisms, we'd be so much further ahead right now.
See, I told you we'd wow you with mushrooms, but I have to admit, one of the most amazing things about our local edible mushrooms is their taste. This risotto made by Mark the fungi is divine. And this mushroom soup tastes different with every bite because of the variety of local mushrooms in it. But let's say you're like me and you picked way more mushrooms than you can put on the dinner table. What else can you do to preserve them?
These are just dried chanterelles. I dry them in strips because they're more amenable to cooking that way. And I also dry some with a seasoning that I spray on at the final stage of drying. So I call them seasoned chanterelles, a tamari like soy sauce.
While drying is one way to deal with your excess bounty, you can also bring your choice mushrooms to local buyers in exchange for money. It seems there were way more mushrooms than usual this year. And is there a reason for that?
The rain. And all of the members of our mushroom club were praying for rain in August, and we got it. And we got rain in September, and we did lots of rain dances, and now we have this wonderful fog, and that's what gives us the mushrooms.
I don't know what these are. That's what I want to. They're Sepatose cluster. There's just a few I got yesterday, and just in behind me here.
So you've come here today to see if they can help you identify some?
Well, that's one of the reasons. I've been into mushrooms 40, 50 years.
Wow.
Since I was a kid, actually. Vancouver Junior Natural History Society.
Wow.
And we used to get taken out to the Lynn Valley for mushrooms when I was a kid. So, but still very much an amateur, but I eat a lot. I eat 50 kinds, maybe I know 50 kinds. I've never really counted them, but I think I know about 50 edibles.
Well, I know about 5, but that's plenty for 1 year. But I have to say, mushroom hunting can be addictive.
I think it's the challenge of finding mushrooms. You never quite know what kind of year you're going to have, and it's just so much fun to go out in the forest. It's like hunting for treasure, and when you find the treasure, it's just wonderful.
Well, that wraps up our foray into mushroom madness on the Sunshine Coast. I hope you enjoyed it. I'm your host, Tamar Kozlov, and thanks for watching.